Yo, as we know, life is full of surprises, both good and bad, and the day-to-day journey is full of unforeseen obstacles, and sometimes it's hard for us to see our way through. Beyond the norm and mundane, and where unscripted dreams live, join us for thought-provoking discussions and interviews to help us navigate through the fog and create our own path. We are the Unscripted Dream Podcast, operating outside the margins to motivate and inspire our audience. So today's episode, people, ladies and gents, is titled Mindless Behavior. Okay. No, I'm not talking about the music group. Really talking about something
Hey,
worthwhile.
that's a throwback. That's a throwback right there. I never even thought about it. Oh, man.
Yeah, this is actual quality here, man. So we ain't gonna talk about that. But ideally, when you think of a mindless behavior, man, and no, we're not talking about American boy band or group or R&B group, whatever you want to call them. But ideally, what mindless behavior is, man, is basically the idea of not having or showing an ability to absorb ideas readily. Also, you can associate it with basically lacking intelligence or good sense, or you're more or less being foolish at times. You're not really thinking your thoughts through carefully. And I think mindless behavior is a very worthy topic for today, just because I feel like nowadays a lot of people are saying things to say it and it doesn't add up or doesn't make sense. We can go ahead and dive into what I want to call the social media pulpit there, ball pit there, because there's a lot of stuff in there. So when you think about social media ball pit, think about people that had said countless things and got banned from social media for some of the crazy or outrageous things that they say or have said, and not really understand like their influential power on other folks. And it doesn't necessarily have to be on that big of a scale. That's just an example. But there are people out there, man, that just do a lot of things without saying or doing it. Like they don't think about the repercussions down the road. Not saying that you have to either, but it would save you a lot of heartache and pain in most cases if you monitor what you have to say and pay close attention to what you're doing. Think about people that are addicted to cigarettes, addicted to drinking. I associate that with mindless behavior, especially if you do it long term and this is a routine for you. You might be having a good time right now, but are you fully aware of like what you're doing to your physical health? And that's like mindless behavior right there in a sense, just because, you know, you might get a response for habitual substance abusers where they just say, "Well, I just don't care." And yeah, you might say you don't care, but when it really happens or when, it hits the fan, then all of a sudden, you want to change up or you want to repent for whatever you've done. So it's just a ball of ignorance, really, and people not really taking the time to really like think things through before they actually commit to doing it.
The social media piece, I think I've been doing an exceptional job of not talking about social media as much, but it's so prevalent that it's hard to kind of discuss. So, but whoever is out here putting the documentary together, you can call me for these comments that I've been making for the past couple of years on this show. I've been calling it. But Joe, I think what you are kind of saying had me thinking about, like just the social media piece and how the way that we communicate has changed. And I think that we haven't
Figured it
come
out yet.
to like come to an understanding of how much it has changed and how we value things and how things were before. So now I mean we have people that you can make your livelihood off of like just social media. Right. Before we didn't, that wasn't an option. Years like 10, 15 years ago. It wasn't an option at all.
Right.
And now you see that in a lot of people, I think I'm not gonna say a lot of people, but there's a percentage of the population that aspires to be known. Like they want recognition, they want attention. I can even remember just being younger and like thinking it was like cool to be on TV and all that other stuff. And like people want to be famous and all that. And when I look at TikTok, I'm like, anybody can do with some of the stuff you send me, Joe. Anybody can be famous. All right. You can in your own word. I think if we wanted to get on TV, we could get on TV like pretty easily if we wanted to on any random show as much stuff is on right now. But when I think about like just the concept of just, people just getting into the habit of doing all these things online and just putting their information out there, not really thinking about the consequences because everybody else is doing it. Is that I get to think about like newspapers or media outlets, like legitimate media outlets, is that we've eliminated like a filter. We gave ourselves this software and these platforms that allow us to just random thought out in the ether. We put it out there. We put it out there.
Yep.
And people are saving that stuff too. Like, yeah, you can delete stuff, but they're saving stuff. I see the profiles on Twitter where somebody will actually like take something that somebody says, they'll save it, and then they'll wait for them to just
The timing.
post something else. Yeah. They'll wait for the hypocritical comment, and then they'll just post that to kind of expose this person or this influencer. That happens all the time, right? Like I see it.
That's happened to me where people try to do that, and then I just laugh and I just say, I'll state my case if it's really worth my time. But in most cases, people like that, they're never gonna see the good in you because they're fully hell bent on proving you wrong, and so to speak. So you kind of have to tread lightly in those situations. And also, you putting a target on your back. Like, it's the easiest time today, right now is the easiest time to put a target on your back. Think about it. You do any kind of criminal acts, there's cameras everywhere now. There's people with phones and videos now. Like, it doesn't make sense to go out there and commit crimes and you know that you're going to be on footage somewhere. It just doesn't make sense. Think about, I don't know, that I feel like that was a great example right there, but just think about it, man. Like, I feel like a lot of people don't think things through. Like, they think that they can say or do things like it's the 90s or the early 2000s, and it's like, no, bro, like we're on an elevated status now, you know what I'm saying? Because there's always somebody that's going to provide their input, and it's a very sensitive time right now because everybody feels like they're being attacked or challenged even when they're really not. It might just be someone simply just giving their peace of mind. That's obviously not needed or anything, but this is what kills me is, if you see it on your timeline or you see it somewhere or you hear somebody say something like that, what would it kill you to turn it off? Would it kill you to just like disapprove, but you know what I'm saying, provide your input? You know what I'm saying? Like it that kind of stuff goes away when you don't give it light, is basically what I'm saying. And you don't necessarily have to follow this stuff or this information, but you choose to. So like, perfect example, TMZ. TMZ will put out a lot of bull crap and people choose to follow them continuously just because, or the shader. That's another one. People choose to do that just because they like being entertained by the news, the information. And I feel like nothing's wrong with that as far as being updated, but you need to associate it with just being entertainment. Because all the stuff that shows up on there is not always true. Just because someone's hanging out with somebody doesn't mean that that's what's really going on. You don't know. That could be a whole business thing. You don't know. So it's just like those type of things, man, where I feel like a lot of people just look at articles or hear secondhand, third hand nature, and then just take the information and run with it and then just rattle it off to someone else. That's mindless behavior, man. Did you do your research? Did you look into that? Have you thought about all the ins and outs? Have you even taken consideration of what this person's feeling at the time for, them to say or go through these type of things? Did you think that did you ever think that maybe they're mentally ill? Because there's a lot of mentally ill people out there with the same capabilities or access that you have to certain things. So it's almost like you can't even really save grace for them, even if they do have like a mental or some type of disability, right? Maybe someone lost their mother, maybe they lost their father, so they're not in the right sense. So they're just tweeting or they're lashing out in emotion. You know what I'm saying? These are things that people should probably take into consideration. I'm not saying that they don't mean what they say, but you also got to take into consideration that their state of mind is not where it needs to be. And that's the reason why you get some of this bull crap that you see out here, just because people are really having a hard time out here and really going through it. And unfortunately, these are the only avenues and that's a big avenue for them to kinda, like, get their frustrations out.
That's I think that I remember, like, way back, one of the episodes when Melissa came on the show. Shout out to Melissa, wherever you are,
Yeah,
you
shout
know? So, but I remember, because I kinda went I think I probably went on a little rant just talking about, like, you can post, like, what's the understanding the underlying function behind why we post things on these platforms, on social media and whatnot, and I think I said something like, you can post pictures, like, if you like to tell stories and share what you're doing, you can type on a piece of paper, print it, and post it on your refrigerator,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So, it's the process, and then that's now there's a lot of barriers there. You have to get on a computer, you gotta type it out, print it out, you have paper, you have a printer. So there's a lot of barriers there, but you think about what has changed, like I said, I think this is we're gonna be, like, very behind on this, but I think we don't it hasn't caught up to us yet as far as, like, when a media company, like, when they are just like, if it's a newspaper or, like, a serious media outlet, there's editors there. That editor is there as, like, the filter. That's the line of defense between you messing up, screwing up, and getting that information out. They make sure it's good for wide distribution,
yep.
but when we go out on our own and we just say, "Hey, this is how I feel. I'm gonna put this out there," you have to understand that,
We
like
don't
a
have a
newspaper or a media
publicist.
outlet, yeah, but they understand their audience too, and they understand the exposure. Like that editor, that person who's screening those things. Of course, some are better than others, but they understand the risk and the implications of putting out publishing certain information or certain statements. They understand that risk. But what we do, when we just go out there and just throw that stuff out there, like we don't understand the risk that we're doing to our future selves.
Yeah.
Like I think that's the thing, and that you, I think, and just lack of understanding that, like, so you just know somebody's not going to like. I could go tweet something right now. Somebody's not going to like it, and there's a reason why the dislikes were pulled off of like Facebook and pulled off of some of these platforms. They took that away for a reason. And the reason wasn't to help you. It was more so to like take one of the handcuffs off. Because if you know you're going to post something and the overall sentiment is going to be negative, you're less inclined to post. So that was a system that was taken away to encourage people to engage in more mindless behavior. But this will all come to light like 10, 15 years from now. And just know that I said this. I've been publicly saying this stuff for the past, what, 2, 3 years we've been doing this podcast, but it's like we haven't I just know that we haven't identified or accepted that it's different. It works different. Like you're putting this stuff out into the world and you're thinking that you're like highly emotional. Like people are like highly emotional. They're tweeting this stuff, they're posting this stuff, they're taking pictures of stuff, recording stuff, and just putting it out there. And they're not thinking because what's happening is you're wanting that attention, or you're just wanting to get that out, like get out there because things have changed to where now, like the social media it's ingrained in a percentage of the society. So now, like we're using it for something. It's replacing like a lot of this stuff would be conversations you would just have with like one or two people or like your circle. But now you're putting that stuff out there in front of the world, and it's not the same, and things have changed, and it hasn't been acknowledged publicly yet, but like it'll come, and and then there will be things that people do to, kind of combat posting things. And if you're someone who, like, say you're like, hey, I want to use social media. Like I want a lot of like say you're somebody who said I want a lot of people to follow me on Facebook, and you identify that early on, then you'll start taking precautions and things that you'll understand that like, hey, I shouldn't post this. Or maybe I should post this because it's like salacious or something like that, and it'll get you a lot of clicks and stuff. But then just being more methodical about how you approach your post. But some people like, I just want attention. Post. I'm not feeling good. Post. There's no thought. And I think Joe's what you're getting at is there's no intersection between thought and action. It just happens. Like you go straight to the action without thinking about like the actual outcome of what you actually put out there into the world.
So I guess with that being said, do you think that it's the platform's responsibility to have hire certain people or maybe come up with some type of artificial intelligence as far as identifying uncharacteristic statements or sayings from someone. So, like, for example, they may not necessarily say you can't say this, but if you've driven a car that's rather recent within the past 4 or 5 years, your car might tell you, like, it's 33 degrees outside, roads may be icy, watch that. Or, like, for example, you've been driving for a while and your patterns are kind of off a little. Do you need to take a break or a quick rest? Like, my past few vehicles do that. Do you think that there needs to be some type of AI that may need to have statements like that so people can think twice about what they say and do?
Unfortunately, yes. And the reason I say it's unfortunate is because
It
I don't
shouldn't
think
get to
we're
that point.
process. Yeah, but yeah, it's. I think yeah, it'll be helpful, but that also, like we just did the episode on, like giving away your power, like that's
Yep,
part of it because you're putting trust in either the party to develop things to like for you to make better decisions when you could make. So so what will happen is yeah, there'll probably be something like that. I think you're calling Joe's that there'll probably be something like that in a few years that kind of goes through that and breaks that down. But now, but when I'm saying this today, somebody can listen to this episode today or understand that's an issue today, and they could just make that change right now instead of waiting 3 years for them to start putting this safety stuff on these things and that and like that. And that's where I think we're trying to get at in that episode is that. But yeah, I think it's one of those things where you have to like save people from like hurting themselves. It's almost like a seatbelt. Almost yeah, it's like putting a seatbelt on somebody. Like it just like hold back a little bit. But that's I mean it's an education piece, and I think that yeah, if people would like just show people, explain, but it's not like this is like I can see it. Like I can see what the issue is, but before it's gonna be a long time before people are actually teaching it and showing people and then explaining what the actual like the ramifications are or just understanding the risk. Like there was this thing like people because I mean we're wearing headphones a lot more and like the beats for me at least changed the game. I know they have the safety. I don't know, like whatever phone you have, I know that before I could just turn it all the way up and there
yep.
was nothing. But now if I want to turn it up, there's a thing that says
Bunch
there's
of
a message
information.
that comes up. If you want to not go deaf, let's keep it at this level. Right. But before that wasn't
Yep.
there. But it was always an issue. We just didn't it wasn't widely accepted as an issue. So social media has created there's these issues that we just haven't publicly really identified the risk, like identified the risk and put it out there. And there's not enough traction for that information to get put out there. But years from now, that information is going to be readily available. And a lot of things would change. And like I learned this as I just like research different things, different investments and things that I do is that like a lot of these changes when they really happen, it's either going to have to be something like very bad that happens. And it's like, oh, you need to do something about this, or that change has to come from an industry leader or a country. Like it has to come from someone who has like deep influence in the space. So until we have that, like until one of the social media platforms actually says like, or a regulator put something in place, like this is what needs to happen, it's not going to happen. So, you know, if you're an influencer, you're someone who aspires to be an influencer, which I think is going to be like a field to itself. Like you could teach, like you could train somebody what they need to do to be an influencer and all the things that they need to do. So I think that that will be part of those education packages for, I'm sure it probably exists in some capacity already, but it'll be, it'll be out there in that sense. But as far as like widespread, this is what you need to understand. This is what you need to do. That's no, it's too profitable. It's too profitable. The data is too profitable. So I think it's something that people have to come to on their own, or they're going to keep kind of falling victim to some of these things. I don't even know. Did I answer your question? I
Yeah.
think I answered, but in a long
Yeah.
way, right?
Yeah. No, that's what why we do this podcast, man. Unscripted dreams, baby. You figure it out on the way, be a conversation. But yeah, that's the whole thing, man. Like, unfortunately, I think there needs to be some type of policing. I feel like there's too much freeness, and it's a shame that some of these platforms need that. I don't know how many times I could just look at random stuff and I'm like, hey, this has no business being on. Why is this on here? You know, or if you're gonna have this on this platform, at least have like a special place for that. You know what I'm saying? Like, for example, when you look at some of these platforms, you may see like adult content there, right? Why can't there just be the same app, but there's like a place where you can like go in to look specifically for that adult content? I'm not saying that you can't have it on there, but it would be a lot better if, they did some type of format or formulation where it's just like, hey, we got a subset application where you can turn this filter on or off, or you have to like enter some type of credentials to state like, hey, I am actually 18 years or older. I can look at this. I can look at whatever that may be. I'm not to whatever content is. Y'all know what that is. So that could be violence, that could be from a sexual prep relation, all that kind of stuff. Like that's what I mean by that. So we can kind of clean it up a little bit. I'm not saying that it has to be super clean, but you know what I'm saying? Like we need to start somewhere. I feel like there's a lot of overhaul that can be done or can be had as far as making a platform better. Initially, people may complain about it, but it wouldn't be much of a complaint if you don't take it away, but you just categorize it. So certain people can filter that out. So it'll make it more enjoyable for everybody. So I'm not trying to give nobody ideas or anything like that, but hey, if y'all hear me out here, y'all creators or developers or whatever in the tech world, holla at your boy. I need that check. But I got some great ideas behind. But but yeah, man, mindless behavior, man. Like I even catch myself doing that sometimes, and sometimes it's not even just like from an emotional thing. Definitely not that with me. I got more sense than that. It's more or less from me just being distracted by so many things. I'm a multitask, so like I catch myself a lot of times texting people, and the words turn out to be gibberish. It's partially my fault, but it's also my phone because I'm typing something and it may be written as in slang, but I don't look at it because I'm too quick to respond and doing something else. So it ends up being a whole different word and it may change the whole sentence. And someone's like, what the hell are you talking about? And I'm like, oh, my bad. And then I have to like re edit it. Like I know I could turn that setting off for you smart asses out there, whatever. But even if that's the case, I would still probably have that issue just because that's how fast pace I move as far as multitasking. Like that's not my intent. You know what I'm saying? I'll correct it eventually. But what I'm saying is like, how many of people like me, are out there that do that? Think about like critical messages that you may send to somebody. Like, I know like if you type a certain thing like how, I know sometimes you might say, what's up? Or you may say how or something and it ends up being like HOE instead of HOW. Like there's certain like keywords that I could swipe or type. It would instantly like switch over to something totally inappropriate. So, it's just like stuff like that, man, where I feel like sometimes you gotta give people the benefit of the doubt. Like there's a lot of times where, I might be thinking I sent a message and I totally didn't send it. It's drafted and it's sitting in my drafts right there. So whenever I open up your name, the text is right there. I just didn't send it. So, it's just stuff like that, man. There's so many ways that you can misfire on communications, especially now. It's just crazy. Like what you wrote might offend people, but that might not be in the context of how you meant to say it. There's so many things that I can say that sound better with me actually saying it because you can hear the conviction, you can hear the attitude, you can hear it like you understand where I'm coming from. Versus if I typed it, you'd be like, what the, like, what is he saying? Like, this dude is crazy. Like, so, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just stuff like that. And I just feel like a lot of people just are emotionally driven. And before they seek to understand what's being really said or what's written, or ask questions, they're willing to go off. And unfortunately, that's our current state of our world, right? Everybody's just in attack mode. And unfortunately, this won't change until people start getting out of attack mode. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like sometimes when people say things, sometimes you kind of have to write it off as like, yeah, they didn't mean that. They might be going through something. Like these are the type of things that I'm not trying to save nobody by any means, you know, but sometimes some people, just really don't think about what they're saying or what they're doing because they're spread too thin. That's it.
Think we'll leave it there 'cause I got a whole nother something there. Just gonna leave it there. Hey, thanks for listening.
Next time.
As always, take care. Be safe.
Later.